On a bloody night, a group of people were rushing into a fierce battle. Tsubaki Manazuru thought he had won easily, but unexpectedly, the opponent struck back, causing him to fail. In the end, the two embraced each other and fell down together. Elsewhere, Akira Kark was being attacked by a boy who sadly wished he could run with Akira Kark one more time. Akira Kark sank deep into the water. Her crimson eyes suddenly opened, and instantly her body was enveloped in a vibrant red orb. In that moment, she apologized to the boy as if it were her last words. Meanwhile, two girls were chatting animatedly, and as planned, both were eventually defeated by the opponent. People everywhere were fighting each other to the death. The two men argued about fate. Then they too plunged into battle, embracing as they fell. But in the past, they all had a very peaceful life. One morning at the Diori Martial Arts Hall, Isshin Kakihara and I were practicing as usual in the place where his father was the master. With just a slight lapse, Isshin Kakihara lost to me. Isshin Kakihara accused me of cheating. But for me, a win is a win, regardless of fairness. Whiners only show their immaturity. This is the purest spirit of the sword. I understand this very well. Feeling unconvinced, Isshin Kakihara challenged me to a duel, but I calmly shook my head, refusing because I still had to prepare breakfast for everyone. In my carelessness, I carelessly cut my hand, the blade scraping across to create a drop of blood. When breakfast was served, Isshin Kakihara ate with great joy. He praised his older brother's rolled omelet as the best in the world. I shared the recipe with my younger brother, but the only thing Isshin Kakihara cared about was having food to fill his stomach. Seeing this, I disapproved, feeling like this useless brother couldn't live without me. I sternly told my brother he had to learn to cook for himself, because I wasn't Isshin Kakihara's wife and couldn't always be there for him. Isshin Kakihara naively dreamed of a future where the two brothers would always be together, where they would jointly manage the martial arts hall, with me as the master and him as the assistant. Afterward, we took the train to school. On the train, Isshin Kakihara kept rambling about his future as a master at the martial arts hall. I made him believe that Isshin Kakihara was stronger than me, but in reality, he never beat me. Actually, I was planning to leave home. Isshin Kakihara's father had taken me in since I was little, raised me, and paid for my university tuition. But I still intended to leave, even if I couldn't tell my younger brother why. I hadn't made up my mind yet, so I asked my brother to keep it a secret. Isshin Kakihara was worried about the future of the martial arts hall if I left. Today at school was a peaceful morning, and our friends were innocently chatting about breakfast during a break. Suddenly, a strange sound was transmitted. Even covering my ears couldn't stop it. Everyone collapsed in a daze, only I remained awake. I woke Isshin Kakihara up, urging him to try hard. Then suddenly, a red mist filled with poison began to pour in and enveloped everything. By then, I had also passed out. Everyone vanished in the mist, leaving only their clothes behind. In another dimension, I met a blonde girl dressed in Lolita fashion. She said that everything we saw was just a constructed dimension, and everything within would soon disappear without a trace when this illusory landscape vanished. With my IQ of 200, I quickly grasped the story. Realizing everything was just a dream, the girl invited me to discuss fate. I found the girl's words somewhat forcing. The girl continued to preach about the power still imprisoned within me, like a king shackled under a peach tree, and how people had researched to find the answer in vain. At this point, I completely didn't understand what the girl was saying, or who she was. The girl introduced herself as Dux, and she promised to meet me again in this world. I woke up in the university hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses. They informed me that I was the last one to wake up. While others woke up after a week, it took me 5 months to open my eyes. Worse still, everyone had the exact same dream as me. Outside, Tokyo was facing a terrible disaster. Gigantic trees had sprouted everywhere, and the city was completely covered in a red fog. The doctor called this an unprecedented event. No one knew what happened during the week. Everyone was unconscious. Hearing that I was awake, Isshin Kakihara cried with relief and rushed to the dojo to pick me up. Right after leaving the hospital, a pair of reporters approached me because I was the last person to wake up. On the way home, I felt a headache and dozed off for a moment. In my dream, I saw Isshin Kakihara's father lying in a pool of blood with me standing over him. Sharp thorns pierced the father's hands, causing him to scream in agony. I woke up with a jolt, and we had arrived at the dojo. Just then, the strange sound echoed again. It was caused by a man and a girl. Then, a loud explosion destroyed the entire dojo. A monster appeared, and horrifyingly, it was Isshin Kakihara's father. The monster rushed to slash me, but I managed to dodge. Isshin Kakihara handed me a cane. Using the skills I had trained, I rushed forward, but I couldn't strike because memories of my late master kept flashing in my mind. This hesitation created an opportunity for the monster to slash across my shoulder, causing my blood to spray everywhere. In the moment close to death, the dormant power within my body erupted. My wound healed quickly. My eyes turned red. My solidified blood formed sharp spikes surrounding my body. It was like a copy of Tokyo Ghoul. In an instant, I used my inner strength to shatter the monster's sword and cut off its arm. The monster rushed towards me but was cut in half by me. Seeing this, the girl observing from above showed clear disappointment. She realized I had awakened, which would cause her trouble later. After the fierce battle, the monster fell, but when the light faded, I was shocked to realize the creature was my adoptive father. I couldn't believe my eyes. Hurt and losing control, I blamed myself for harboring resentment towards him for so long, only to end up killing the most important person myself. At that moment, Surdid appeared, gently soothing my pain. I finally collapsed. While Isshin Kakihara was too confused to distinguish reality, Surdid told them not to say anything, that she would explain everything. The police quickly arrived at the scene. The policewoman and her colleague began to investigate, but none of them understood what had happened. When questioned, Surdid said she was a classmate of the two brothers and her presence was just a coincidence. The police concluded that Isshin Kakihara's father was missing and considered it just another mysterious disappearance, like many recent ones. After the Great Earthquake, 10,000 people had vanished. Rumors spread that the missing people had turned into red mist or bloodthirsty monsters, sounding absurd but sowing seeds of doubt in everyone's minds. When taking me home, Isshin Kakihara confronted the girl, still thinking everything was just a dream. Surdid advised him to accept the cruel reality and understand why his father had become like that. She believed he had been transformed and suspected he met a man wearing a blue coat and glasses. Isshin Kakihara remembered that man but didn't understand why he would do such a thing, since they clearly had no grudges against each other. Seeing me about to speak, Surdid ordered Isshin Kakihara to be quiet, saying she would explain everything to him later, and I certainly would want to know too. Once again, I fell into an illusion. In it, I saw a distorted red space, saw myself being strangled by a completely white man, who was sobbing and calling my name. I woke up with a jolt and saw Surdid beside me. I recognized her as a girl from my fencing club. Surdid advised me to rest because I had used too much power. Mentioning power, I realized my wound was completely healed, but also realized that I was the one who killed my adoptive father. Surdid informed Isshin Kakihara, who was practicing sword fighting outside, that I was awake. Surdid remained by my side, taking care of me meticulously, even cooking breakfast as if nothing had happened. She called me Master Thu. I didn't understand why. As we barely spoke in class, Surdid still held many secrets, waiting for the day I remembered my true name. I always remind everyone to eat breakfast, because you never know when disaster will strike next. After the meal, I rushed to the gym, unsure if my foster father would forgive me. In the end, my hands were stained with blood. Afterwards, Surdid and the two brothers went to school. There, someone was distributing flyers, attacking the surrounding students. Doctors and nurses quickly intervened. The doctor immediately recognized me, even knew my full name, and seemed to know my true identity. The teacher said he would see me again soon. According to Surdid's explanation, the gate between the human world and the monster world had opened, and the enemy was using the transformed bodies to pass through, spreading terror and destruction. Isshin Kakihara's father was an example, and I was fortunate enough to be gifted the strength to survive. Our duty is to fight and exterminate, but I cannot ignore the injury in my heart. After killing my foster father myself, Surdid explained that she was here to ensure my survival. I clenched my fists, demanding Surdid tell me her real identity, but Surdid remained certain that I already knew who she was. Suddenly, my eyes flashed red again, but my voice remained steady. In the bathroom, I asked myself what had happened to me. Then a strange sound echoed again, this time made by a girl. I noticed her and followed her. She seemed to be testing me. Seeing that I had been in the restroom for too long, Surdid and Isshin Kakihara decided to look for me. Their startled actions caught the eye of a journalist. I followed the girl to the main hall, where I met my friend again. The strange sound echoed again, and everyone slumped over. The mysterious girl hid on the observation deck, watching everything. She said something like I had already died. Then she rang the bell again. Despite my screams, the students in the school gradually turned into monsters. I cried out, begging her to spare everyone. The man who accompanied the girl appeared, saying that all those bearing the hero's bloodline must die. He ordered the girl Yuri to act. Isshin Kakihara and Surdid rushed to the scene in a panic. The man decided to take action himself. He punched the head of Isshin Kakihara as if he wanted to blow it apart. He fell to the ground. Surdid hugged me, begging me to remember everything and awaken the strength to rouse the hero's bloodline sleeping within me, and my bloodline would do the rest. Isshin Kakihara continued to hug his head and scream. I can't do it. I'm afraid Isshin Kakihara will also turn into a monster, and I will repeat my mistake. I would rather die than kill the people important to me. Isshin Kakihara did not turn into a monster, but instead awakened his own strength. He transformed into a ghoul replica and attacked. He directly punched the dark-haired man who turned his father into a monster. It turns out, Isshin Kakihara also belongs to the hero lineage. The dark-haired man, seeing another target to eliminate, thought this was a good opportunity to kill both troublesome people at once. Then he punched again, transforming more people into monsters, believing that everyone with the hero's bloodline must die. I still stood there, unwilling to let my hands be stained with blood again, but Isshin Kakihara was sent flying into the wall by a monster whose strength had been boosted. Isshin Kakihara had awakened, but despite having the hero's bloodline, he was still too weak. After witnessing Isshin Kakihara almost lose his life, I could no longer bear to see another important person leave. Therefore, at that moment, the hidden power in my body erupted again, helping me awaken once more and delivering a decisive blow to defeat the monster that was about to finish off my little brother. However, immediately afterwards, Isshin Kakihara's body was poisoned by the monster's horn thorns. The spreading poison made his life extremely fragile. In this desperate situation, there was only one way to save him. I had to remember and call out Surdid's real name, not the fake name she had been using for so long. I tried hard to recall memories until a name surfaced from my subconscious. I called out her real name, Julia. Julia smiled faintly and nodded in acknowledgement. Immediately, a halo surrounded her, helping her transform into her true form, a golden-haired fairy. In that moment, she shed her mortal disguise to become a true guardian. From then on, under the title Julia, the person destined to protect me and take care of Isshin Kakihara. She took on the responsibility of healing Isshin Kakihara. With her augmented strength, I was able to finish off the monster with just one blow. Although Isshin Kakihara was saved, a feeling of deep pain rose in my heart because I had unintentionally taken the life of a monster once again. Deep down, I still recognized that before its transformation, it was a human and a normal student like me. This thought almost made me lose control. The feeling of guilt weighed heavily as my hands continued to be stained with blood. Julia comforted me that it was the only way, but I was furious because I couldn't keep using this as an excuse to kill innocent people. Julia understood that feeling, but once someone turns into a monster, there is no turning back. From afar, the journalist had approached to hunt for a story. He interrogated me about killing my foster father and immediately branded me a murderer. This would be front-page news. Suddenly, the dark-haired man in Yuri appeared from behind to cause trouble. He can use the magic of summoning infinite monsters as long as there is a human to activate the gate. He believes that everyone with the hero's bloodline must die, and he will be the one to make it happen. He boosted a monster's power to attack me. Fortunately, the blood armor protected me. He continued to increase the monster's power, turning it into a giant form. The giant monster rushed towards me, launching a blow aimed directly at me. But at that moment, the mysterious blood layer surrounding my body instantly protected me, preventing me from being seriously injured. Not only that, but this layer also amplified my inner strength, making me significantly stronger. However, the price to pay was extremely high, because the human body cannot withstand this kind of power indefinitely. Even though I became stronger after every battle, if it continues, my body will soon collapse. The dark-haired man could not understand my power. Strange sounds emanated from my body, spreading like a silent wave throughout the area. In the vicinity, Tsubaki Manazuru unintentionally heard it, clutched her head in pain, and her body began to lose control. In that chaos, another girl appeared, desperately calling out for Akira Kark, Tsubaki Manazuru's colleague, to quickly awaken the hero's bloodline within him, because only this could save her. With no other choice, Akira Kark was forced to call out Tsubaki Manazuru's true name. When that true name was called out, the sealed power within her erupted, and Tsubaki Manazuru immediately transformed into Arrow, a beautiful female warrior with superior strength, officially becoming a hero with the hero's bloodline. Thanks to Arrow's awakening, the situation immediately turned around. She charged forward to defeat a monster. Meanwhile, I also concentrated my strength to take down the enemy in front of me. As I prepared to deliver the finishing blow to the boss, another mysterious girl intervened, helping him temporarily escape my grasp. Painful memories flooded back. I clutched my head in confusion, feeling bound by a chain of fate, where strength was both a command and a shackle. Our friend had not yet turned into a monster. Thanks to the help of the doctor and comrades, he was temporarily safe. They all took my group to the temple, a sacred ground for the hero lineage. There, their supreme leader appeared, who was the blonde girl in the Lolita dress that I had met in a dream. Her name was Dux. This was where they fought against chaos, their enemy, and the force that was plunging the world into disorder. Dux briefly explained the predetermined fate. She said that in 40 years, this world would surely be destroyed. And when that destruction came, only a hero bearing the title Crimson King could save humanity. All those with the hero's bloodline had the potential to become the Crimson King. But if that person did not appear, the world would quickly sink into chaos and despair. This prophecy made the journalist half believe it. But Dukes reminded him that even the monsters currently before them were once considered meaningless. Therefore, everyone needed to believe in this truth. Meanwhile, elsewhere, another mysterious group was plotting their plans. They were the ones who caused the Great Collapse, opening the gates for creatures from other worlds to invade, and their goal was to exterminate the entire hero lineage. At the temple, Dukes announced that the only way to stop the chaos was to destroy Tokyo, putting an end to the gate connecting the two worlds. Hearing this, many were shocked, because it was not just a city, but the home of millions of innocent people. Julia stressed that the Guardians exist to prevent this great collapse. While everyone was still arguing, Tsubaki Manazuru returned to human form. Although Ero's soul remained inside her, Akira Kark, unable to accept the reality, laid all blame and mistakes at my feet, cursing me for previously helping Tsubaki Manazuru. Even though Shoko emphasized that once turned into a demoness, there is no turning back, Akira Kark could not suppress his anger. He stood alone in the courtyard, calmly smoking a cigarette, his eyes full of resentment, promising himself that he would find the truth and punish me at all costs. Our friend was being taken to the doctor. The doctor explained that people can transform into monsters by carrying a special gene. This gene has a special connection with the rift. I thought everything was my fault. In a daze, I was pulled into another dimension where Dux forced me to choose. Either accept that my hands will continue to be stained with blood and turn everything into ashes in exchange for a new future, or seek fragile salvation. When I woke up, my hands were still covered in blood. I and the others began the mission to destroy the barriers. After being guided on how to use my power correctly, I grew noticeably stronger. The others could only stand by because they lacked the strength to carry out this mission. To save the future, the only way was to wipe out Tokyo, closing the rift that allowed monsters to pour in. While my team was operating at the villain's lair, they began to argue amongst themselves. The leader didn't want the heroes to follow his orders, believing this would put them at a disadvantage. But the dark-haired man didn't have enough strength to defeat. He mentioned a hidden, very powerful individual, but was immediately silenced by the leader, told it was taboo to speak of. The dark-haired man left, leaving only him and the girl Yuri. In the heavy atmosphere, he called his daughter closer, admitting that only she could save him. Although he didn't want to put his daughter in danger, he also understood that everything had reached a dead end. Meanwhile, after destroying 2 barriers in a short time, my team returned to the church. I had used too much power, my body exhausted and pale, but I believed that as long as the world could be saved, any personal sacrifice was acceptable. Seeing this determination and persistence, Shoko praised me, stating how lucky they were to have me by their side. Otherwise, the troublemakers would become increasingly rampant, possibly beyond control. According to her, once all remaining barriers were destroyed, Tokyo would automatically collapse. The door between the two worlds would close, and the villain's madness would be halted. Suddenly, I passed out. In my dream, I saw even more chaos, more new victims screaming, and I stubbornly resolved that I must destroy all remaining barriers at all costs to save the future. The doctor urgently told me to rest, warning me not to sacrifice myself. He would put me in the infirmary, but I wouldn't let myself stop. Bursting outside, I ran into the journalist. He once again used sarcastic words, suggesting I was despicable, and that even as a supposed hero, he wouldn't join this campaign because he didn't want to be caught up in the rotten stench. Returning to my room alone, I thought deeply. In my head, I envisioned stagnant pools of blood, saw shadows flickering through the thick, dense fog, all heavy and grim. Julia had been sitting there for some time, asking about my condition, but I remained lost in my own internal conflict. Elsewhere on a crowded street, a couple was strolling together. The young man had the rugged look of a street tough. At the school, the nurse knocked on the door and found the doctor collapsed on the floor. In a gasp, he only managed to say he needed medicine to hold on, while telling her to go home alone tonight, as he wouldn't be able to go with her. If she didn't go, many things would become inconvenient. So she got on her large motorcycle and rode off. As night fell, while I was continuing my work, I was interrupted by two people from the Chaos faction. Isshin Kakihara quickly realized that without a human, the enemy couldn't create monsters. Immediately, I launched a series of direct attacks at the dark-haired man. The nurse was not to be outdone, activating her abilities and joining the fight. After an evenly matched exchange, Yuri and I faced each other. I asked Yuri who she really was. Yuri remained silent, while the dark-haired man next to her couldn't understand why she wasn't fighting back with all her might against the enemy. Yuri was slightly distracted, and I quickly attacked her. In an instant, I found myself standing in a thick white fog. There, Yuri appeared again, hinting that this was a memory slowly materializing. I turned to leave, but the girl kept following, proclaiming that I couldn't escape by just wandering around here. I didn't understand why Yuri kept sticking to me. We both started arguing, each believing the other's viewpoint was wrong. Yuri claimed I couldn't destroy the barriers because it would cause Tokyo to collapse, with most people unable to survive. I retorted that it was all because Yuri turned everyone into monsters. In reality, Julia had lost sight of me. In the memory maze, I kept trying to escape, but got more lost. Yuri suddenly made a suggestion, hinting we should forget everything and stay in this place. She didn't care about anything else, believing that staying with me was best. I disagreed, and the girl continued to suggest that we could temporarily seal away the enemy, become allies, and leave this place together. She led me to a large stone statue, explaining it was an energy source, and if we could charge it enough energy, it would open an escape route. I almost drew my sword to destroy it, but the girl stopped me, saying that wasn't the way. However, I still stubbornly used my own strength. She had to remind me to focus all my energy on a single point, controlling the flow instead of wasting power haphazardly. At that moment, my memories of my youth flooded back. I saw the image of a woman who was none other than Yuri. While I was still confused, my consciousness faded, and I collapsed onto the floor. Yuri sat beside me, only smiling faintly at me, then left with the remark that all mistakes originated from my grave. I still had many questions about who this girl really was. After reappearing, I immediately stood up to protect my comrades. This decisive action stunned the opposing side, especially when they witnessed Yuri, whom they had trusted and relied on for strength, being defeated miserably by me. A sense of unease immediately arose in their hearts, making the whole group quickly realize the unstable situation and forcing them to retreat quickly to avoid danger and check on Yuri's condition. Everyone landed on the ground while my mind kept recalling the recent events. The atmosphere became heavy again. Julia asked me about what had just happened because she had lost sight of me and couldn't move, but I remained silent, saying I needed peace and quiet and wanted to be alone. Meanwhile, Isshin Kakihara, who was also at the church, recalled the horrific scene he witnessed firsthand. A girl wearing an eye patch had appeared and summoned a horde of terrifying monsters. Shoko recounted having to face a member of the Divine Protection Society, an organization established long ago to protect Japan even before the country was founded, and apparently they had now become enemies. The nurse wondered why I suddenly disappeared during the fight, citing the hazy memory of the glasses-wearing man, but I only replied that I didn't remember anything that happened. In the tense atmosphere, the journalist was extremely unhappy about being summoned. His information was leaking, and there was a possibility he was a spy. The society began to suspect he might be a spy, but he retorted that becoming a spy would bring him no personal benefit. Seeing the situation was not good, everyone suspended the investigation. Regardless of the outcome, they had been ambushed. Rushing now would only lead to an unfavorable result. Faced with unresolved suspicions, the current mission was temporarily postponed. I still kept a stern face, always lost in thought. I went to the doctor to share what had happened before, recounting Yuri's words that everything was due to my grave. While realizing I had no memory of my youth, I didn't even remember my mother's face. Surprisingly, the journalist interrupted, claiming he knew more than me. He questioned why I couldn't remember anything, even though major events had occurred. Then he began recounting the truth from 10 years ago. My mother used to work at a top-secret scientific facility where all research was never published. Afterwards, both she and my father disappeared, never to be found again. The journalist went even further, claiming that I was the one who killed my parents, and he remembered how I brought them in, causing the doctor to immediately intervene to stop such bitter words. After the incident, Isshin Kakihara and I went to the hospital, but I still maintained a sad and heavy expression, my mind clouded by what I had just heard. Upon returning, we unexpectedly met a female inspector and the girl from that previous battle. She introduced herself as a member of the Guardian Society, and the young girl accompanying her was Tsubaki Manazuru. The two informed us that the Guardian Society was investigating the culprit behind a recent series of mysterious disappearances. The suspect was a man named Aoba, often wearing a blue coat and sunglasses. Hearing this, Isshin Kakihara could not remain calm, immediately grabbing the other person's collar and demanding to know Inuki Aoba's whereabouts. The female inspector replied that she herself was also in the process of tracking him down. In that situation, Isshin Kakihara proactively proposed cooperation, and his request was quickly accepted. He would never forgive Inuki Aoba. The two girls also allowed them to cooperate in the investigation. All these developments were witnessed by the doctor from afar. As for me, I went to a small house surrounded by lush flowers. But suddenly, a pool of blood appeared before my eyes, shocking me, only to realize it was all just a dream. Meanwhile, the doctor was diligently researching, trying to create a secret red stone. Just as he seemed to succeed, he failed again. The journalist was scattering papers in a furious rage, while Shoko quietly swept the floor of the shrine. The female inspector sat thoughtfully, but was then called over by the journalist. The doctor continued to work in a state of exhaustion, and it seemed everyone was busy with their own responsibilities. I sat silently in the garden, holding a flower branch, a faint smile on my lips. The nurse came to see the doctor, advising him not to overwork, but he only replied that he didn't have much time left. During this time, Inuki Aoba came into view, secretly being followed and photographed by the journalist and Arrow. I still often visited my friend in the hospital, always blaming myself for everything. The doctor gave me a ray of hope by saying he was finding a cure. Everything is progressing very well. He wants to do everything he can so that he won't have to live with regret later. Under the twilight, the doctor was terrified that he had tried to destroy the laboratory, but in the end, Dux brought him to the shrine as if it were fate. I pleaded that I only hoped for forgiveness, wanted to escape this pain, and did not want to continue killing people. The doctor immediately comforted me, affirming that he had found a solution to cure me. As for the Guardian Society, they concluded that Inuki Aoba was behind everything, but also suspected they might be targeting the wrong person. That night, I dreamt of the doctor collapsing in a pool of blood, which woke me up in a fright. I immediately called the hospital, but could not reach the doctor. Only the nurse answered. I asked the nurse to quickly transfer the call to the doctor, but she couldn't find him either. In deep worry, I rushed out to search. Elsewhere, the journalist and Arrow were also searching for clues, finally managing to open a password on someone's computer, causing the journalist to exclaim in delight at finding the data he needed. In desperation, I ran everywhere, frantically searching for the doctor. As I passed by a house, I saw Yuri happily playing with a group of small children. Meanwhile, the Guardian Corps was suddenly attacked. Isshin Kakihara rushed to help, but the girl told him not to worry about her and to go after the culprit. However, Isshin Kakihara insisted that he couldn't leave her alone. Under the cold moonlight from a high place, the doctor suddenly howled like a wild wolf. The horrifying truth gradually emerged that he was the very monster that had appeared and caused the terrible battle Isshin Kakihara had to face. Tsubaki Manazuru woke up. Fortunately, after her near-death experience, she told Marie that she no longer saw any trace of Inuki Aoba, because when she arrived, she only found the victim and a person who had been transformed. Marie was surprised that the transformed person acted alone and concealed his presence very well. This transformed person was completely different from those they had met before. In a dark alley, a police officer was searching for someone on the orders of his superior. The person they needed to find was the doctor. But when another colleague returned with dinner, the police officer was only left with 3 dead bodies. Before that, I couldn't answer the phone. That's why I could contact the nurse now. After searching, the nurse found that the doctor was not in the clinic. I had a hunch that something terrible would happen to him. The nurse still naively believed that the doctor was just overworked, nothing to worry about, and that they should let him rest. Because of that dream, I was very worried and determined to find the doctor no matter what. I called Shoko at the shrine to ask about the doctor's whereabouts, saying I had seen him in a nightmare. Outside, The police were also searching everywhere for the doctor. Shoko felt she didn't have time to care about my absurd dreams. Helpless, I returned to the familiar house, blaming myself, not knowing what to do. I held my head, recalling the doctor's parting words. As long as I am patient and don't give up, I will find a solution. Therefore, I decided to meet the doctor to speak frankly. On the other side, the doctor had re-established contact with the nurse. He asked about the research status and apologized to her, saying that from now on, he would leave everything to her. The nurse reproached him for being selfish. After the transfusion, he felt an excruciating headache, his fangs almost turning into those of a monster. Unfortunately, Inuki Aoba's henchmen found him. They surrounded him, demanding he wait there until Jun, their superior, arrived. Upon hearing of Jun, the doctor urged the police to run away quickly. They only scoffed, thinking the doctor was joking. Just then I arrived. The doctor urged me to stay away and not get involved with him. But I still didn't understand the problem and warned the doctor that he was in danger. The henchman told me to stay away. However, I was prepared to fight them. The doctor gritted his teeth, bared his fangs, transformed into a wolf, and quickly jumped into the river to escape. The henchmen cursed me for daring to let their specimen escape, and they wouldn't be able to explain this to their superior. I didn't understand what was happening. I returned to the shrine in confusion, where everyone had gathered. The journalist immediately asserted that the doctor was a traitor. Then, he presented a photo as proof. It showed an orphanage where the doctor and Inuki Aoba had grown up together. The two were practically blood brothers. According to Shoko's logic, the doctor was on the other side from the start, which could explain why he always opposed everyone's actions. Only I spoke up to defend the doctor, saying they couldn't confirm he was a traitor based only on a picture. But the journalist produced another piece of information. That orphanage was directly managed by the Avil Science Society, my mother's organization, which always presented a good public image. Behind that were illegal activities related to weapon development and unethical experiments. That science society was our enemy. Shoko concluded that the organization was also on the side of chaos. I refused to believe this. The journalist showed another picture showing the chairman of Avil with his daughter, Yuri. I immediately recognized her. By this time, everyone had to accept the truth that the doctor was the one who leaked the information to protect the children in the orphanage, his home. The orphanage was located right in the restricted area of the tower. If it were destroyed, the children would die. The nurse further explained that she had also grown up in that house, which was actually an underground research facility where children were subjected to physical torture experiments. Both she and the doctor were failed products discarded after the experiments, and because of that, they miraculously survived. Due to the effects of those studies, the doctor still suffered long-term consequences. His body was running out of time. His life was about to end. I went to the orphanage, recalling the image of Yuri happily playing with the children. Unable to understand the meaning of that smile, I returned to the familiar house with the clusters of purple flowers. Yuri comes over to admire these beautiful flowers. They are called rosemary. I call her by that name. Yuri replied with a slight smile, even complimenting that the hot cocoa she once drank in this house was delicious. She tried to make it again, but couldn't make it as good as my mother. I can't remember anything. I only know Yuri's name through others' accounts. I have nothing, can't do anything, and I'm about to lose an important person to me. Yuri asks for my help. Strangely, whenever I am near Yuri, I forget all my enemies, even my comrades, and only want to stay by her side. I ask Yuri about the pain I have lost. Yuri only sits down quietly on the chair. I move to sit next to her. At this time, Inuki Aoba is still looking for the doctor. His comrade is also trying his best. The female inspector approaches and pats them on the shoulder to ask for some information. Finally, Inuki Aoba and the doctor come face to face. Inuki Aoba wants the doctor to go with him to the association. That might be the only place he can go at this moment. The doctor is the most important brother to him. The doctor also knows this, but he begs Inuki Aoba to kill him quickly. He wants to die while still being Inuki Aoba's dearest brother, rather than turning into a monster. Inuki Aoba grinds his teeth reluctantly, wanting to fulfill the doctor's wish. However, I ran in to intervene, stopping Inuki Aoba from killing the doctor. As a result, the doctor completely turned into a monster. The female inspector's team is questioning the civilians to find Inuki Aoba's location. Things are getting increasingly chaotic. I attack the doctor, who has turned into a monster, continuously trying to persuade him. Inuki Aoba also comes to help, but he can't do anything either. Behind the doctor's terrifying strength is the support of the nurse who is controlling his power. I activate my ability with a huge surge of power. Quickly, that power goes beyond control and disappears, leaving me with a horrified look. The doctor monster rushes in to attack again. This time, we fight hand to hand. I summon a beam of light that sweeps everything away, trying to increase my power. Inuki Aoba watches the battle, unable to understand why this is happening, only guessing that I have awakened the power of the Crimson King. The doctor still has some consciousness, shouting inside for me to stop. He clings to me, absorbing power from me. He urges me not to become like him, but to save everyone. He believes in me. Then, the doctor dissolves into red smoke amid Inuki Aoba's desperate scream, leaving behind a dazzling red jewel. Inuki Aoba turns and walks away, tears streaming down his face. I also collapse. The moon is very bright tonight. I give the jewel the doctor left behind to the nurse. She sadly takes the small object, looks at it intently, and then gently thanks me for staying with the doctor until the very end. For those with the hero's bloodline, death is not the end. They will turn into a red gem. In another dimension, Dukes and Shoko meet to exchange information. Chaos is controlling the heroes to fight and destroy each other. When all the heroes disappear, this world will be destroyed. They have to destroy Tokyo, and only those with the hero bloodline can survive. They will become the Crimson King and form the foundation for the new world to follow. Only one hero is allowed to exist to protect the world. The idea that only one person can exist makes Shoko desperately hope it will be her. Inuki Aoba stands silently in a corner, recalling the recent battle, his mind consumed by chaotic thoughts. He wonders if I have the ability to become the Crimson King. Beautiful memories with the doctor flood his mind. The image of his friend who left still haunts him. He questions his ability to defeat me, wondering if he can win or not. In anguish, he throws a rose from a skyscraper. Yuri and the antagonistic group appear afterward. One of them looks joyful, thinking they have eliminated a hero. The leader announces that the second great catastrophe is approaching, and they need to sacrifice many more lives to achieve their goal. Amidst this atmosphere, Yuri appears with a silent, sad expression. A fleeting look of sadness in her eyes makes those around her feel strange. Inuki Aoba sternly warns that this time, they must be ready and kill the heroes. If they are hindered, it will be difficult to conduct the experiment. One of them agrees that now is the best time to attack. The leader asks Yuri if she agrees. She agrees, but a shadow of sadness crosses her eyes. Seeing this, the leader orders her to quickly carry out the mission for him. After the meeting, Inuki Aoba discusses killing me with his comrades because I killed his best friend. He wants me to die when I am most desperate. This time, Inuki Aoba will not let Yuri participate, believing her personal feelings will be an obstacle. Only he and Haru Minakami will participate in this mission. I sit alone in the garden, remembering the doctor, the times they spent together, and his last words. My heart feels empty and anxious as I wonder if I can become the person the doctor was not. Yuri appears, gently approaching me as if to comfort me. They sit together admiring the flowers, both holding unspoken words but restraining themselves. Yuri expresses joy at seeing me again, saying she often comes here when she needs to think. But this time, she came here specifically to meet me. She places a cup of cocoa, made by her own hands, in front of me, trying to make it taste like the one my mother used to make. The warm scent of cocoa softens the atmosphere between us. I recall what she said earlier and ask about her family. Yuri recounts that before the catastrophe, my mother and her father worked together in a laboratory. They were here before the experiment failed. Since then, my mother has been pulled into another world, and Yuri's father has completely changed. He no longer sees her as his daughter, devoting all his attention to opening a passage between worlds. I also no longer come to this place. Yuri wants to find me but is forbidden by her father. Yuri is lonely and helpless. She misses me, but she can only live according to her father's will. She says her father only sees her as a vessel for the hero's blood, not as a daughter. She has been forced to participate in horrific acts, even compelled to do things against her will. This house is the only place she feels she belongs. I thank Yuri for the cup of cocoa, saying I feel a little better. I sit in the church remembering my mother, the doctor, and Yuri. Then, an image of Isshin Kakihara, lying in a pool of blood, just like the doctor before, suddenly appears in my head, thinking that Isshin Kakihara must not die through my heart like a command. I immediately get up to find Isshin Kakihara, but I can't find him anywhere. At that moment, Isshin Kakihara was strolling with Tsubaki Manazuru in the city. With the antagonistic group secretly following them, Tsubaki Manazuru takes him to a rooftop. This is Tokyo, but from the outside, this scene cannot be seen. This is Tsubaki Manazuru's favorite place. There are many places she wants to go with Isshin Kakihara. Afterward, she invites him to eat. I return to the garden to meet Yuri. At the restaurant, Haru Minakami complains about why, as a villain, he has to follow a bunch of kids around. In fact, Inuki Aoba is also targeting Tsubaki Manazuru. Hearing that the Hero Association is also hindering them, I tell Yuri about my prophetic dreams, saying that every time I dream of someone, that person will face a catastrophe. This time, the dream shows Isshin Kakihara. Yuri believes that I have the ability to change fate if I dare to try, and she will always believe in me. As soon as I receive a distress call from Isshin Kakihara, I rush to the reported location, but it turns out to be just a request to pay a bill because my brother forgot his wallet. Relief washes over me when I learn that Isshin Kakihara is safe. But before I can breathe a sigh of relief, the antagonistic group suddenly rushes out to attack. Haru Minakami rushes towards Tsubaki Manazuru to silence her. Tsubaki Manazuru quickly switches to fighting mode. I see Isshin Kakihara hanging upside down in mid-air, a scene exactly like in my dream. Inuki Aoba stops me. If I resist, he will kill Isshin Kakihara. Inuki Aoba blames me for letting the doctor die. Inuki Aoba declares he will torture Isshin Kakihara so that I can experience a similar feeling of loss. He wants revenge on me, believing everything is my fault. Yuri unexpectedly appears amidst the chaos and rushes to save Isshin Kakihara. She immediately shields me as if forgetting all her past connections with her father. Her action is clearly a betrayal of her father. She gathered all her strength to save her friend. Inuki Aoba, despite being furious, did not strike Yuri. Meanwhile, the soldier Haru Minakami, whom they considered their primary opponent against Tsubaki Manazuru, was completely overwhelmed. Tsubaki Manazuru rushed over and saw Isshin Kakihara resting against a tree. It turned out Isshin Kakihara was safe. The truth was that Yuri had betrayed her father to save them. She had nowhere left to hide. This time, fate brought her to me to be rescued. That evening, everyone was invited to the temple to meet the Guardian Association. The journalist received the call and expressed his displeasure. Feeling troubled about being drawn into the mess, Shoko politely apologized for the inconvenience, but said the current situation left no other choice. The Guardian Association quickly arrived, and the atmosphere immediately became tense. I looked at everyone and slowly stated, the reason I called them was to propose a collaboration to find a way to protect the world together. As soon as I finished speaking, Tsubaki Manazuru immediately agreed to cooperate. However, other members of the group considered it a naive fantasy and believed Tsubaki Manazuru would be disciplined. She immediately accused my group of causing danger, even threatening to destroy this world. But Shoko retorted, saying what they were doing was not to destroy, but to protect the world from destruction. The girl in the Guardian Association, Julia Ichiho, did not accept this, viewing my group as fanatics who considered themselves a national protection organization while killing their opponent. She immediately prepared to summon aid for the battle. The boy Segura, who accompanied her, also summoned his magical weapon. Isshin Kakihara did not lag behind, immediately transforming. Tsubaki Manazuru hurriedly stopped them, fearing a clash would erupt in the tense atmosphere, like a lit fuse. Shoko warned that if Tokyo was not destroyed, the world would surely face extinction. I boldly argued back, believing there was still a way to save the world without destroying Tokyo. Seeing this as potentially promising, the Guardian Association began to show interest in negotiating. At that moment, I called Yuri out. Upon seeing her, the entire association immediately considered Yuri an enemy and rushed to attack her all at once. I quickly defended her, boldly declaring that Yuri was an ally. The others watched in disbelief, thinking I had been fooled, but I refuted it with evidence that Yuri had saved Isshin Kakihara from the enemy. Isshin Kakihara also stood up to confirm, causing the atmosphere to momentarily quiet down. I recounted my prophetic dreams and emphasized that Yuri helped me change fate. Isshin Kakihara being alive was clear proof. I would no longer believe in fate, but only focus on moving forward. I knew the organization's plot was to eliminate the lineage of heroes. Therefore, they caused a mass catastrophe and turned people into pawns. My plan was very simple. As long as the people of the hero lineage remain alive, the enemy organization cannot complete their plot. If everyone cooperated, the chance of victory would be greater. Some people were gradually persuaded, but Shoko still mistrusted Yuri. For her, there were only two choices. Either Tokyo would be destroyed, or the hero bloodline would be eradicated. I tried to persuade further, but this line of reasoning seemed ineffective against Shoko. Nevertheless, many people still agreed to stand on my side, though a few held the strong opinion that they shouldn't trust too quickly. Meanwhile, at the enemy base, they fully realized that Yuri had betrayed them. Her cold-hearted father scornfully called his daughter a foolish boy crazy girl, but still considered her useful. He swiftly ordered a search for Yuri. The journalist continued to try to convince the policewoman not to trust me, believing the future was dictated by the past. If my hands were stained with blood now, the future would surely swim in blood. I killed my own father to survive. But the girl remained resolute, only saying to follow her to a place for verification. I was sitting alone under the moonlight, quietly contemplating when Yuri brought me a cup of hot cocoa. Meanwhile, the police took the journalist to the archives where the case files from 13 years ago were kept. There, she proved that I was not the murderer of my father, as the journalist had long believed. She had hidden some important documents when she learned I belonged to the hero lineage. According to the file, 13 years ago, a family suicide occurred at my home. When the police arrived, I, in a state of panic, confessed to killing my father. But afterward, I lost all memory. There were ligature marks around my neck. The investigation files showed that my father had intended to kill me, but changed his mind and committed suicide, leaving a final testament begging his son to keep living. The journalist gasped in relief. This trust of many years was overturned. Although he grasped part of the truth, he still found it hard to accept. An emergency call sounded, asking everyone to gather at the temple. Yuri explained that the organization was preparing to cause a second mass catastrophe, but she did not know the details. Shoko continued to sow doubt, urging everyone not to trust Yuri. But this time, almost everyone chose to side with the girl. Shoko could only grit her teeth and declare that they would regret it. In the familiar rose garden, Yuri was moved by everyone's trust. She leaned her head on my hand, smiling faintly, grateful that she could finally help me. I desperately wanted to remember everything about Yuri, believing that fate had begun to turn. Yuri took out a book, an item my mother once gifted her, and handed it to me. The moment I touched it, I immediately fainted, slipping into another dream, as old memories flashed, revealing the events of 13 years ago. And at that moment, the image of the policewoman appeared in my head. Meanwhile, the policewoman continued her investigation and was inadvertently ambushed by the enemy. She fought bravely, but was eventually seriously injured. The enemy, calling himself Death God, said he would grant her a death sentence. Returning to the temple, Shoko took advantage of the situation, shouting that all of this was the result of listening to the enemy. The policewoman tried to turn back, only managing to leave a final sign before collapsing and disappearing into the journalist's arms. Shoko once again verbally attacked Yuri. Just then, Yuri's father appeared, making everyone mistakenly believe she was the traitor. He declared he would take his daughter home. Defying my hopeful gaze, Yuri said nothing, quietly turning to follow her father. But upon arriving home, she was not welcomed. The ruthless father beat and punished her, ordering that she never set foot in the rose garden again. In the darkness, amidst the blood and gore, the grim image of the journalist appeared again, as if haunted by a series of tragedies. The bloody prophetic dream suggested the next person in danger was the journalist. I stood frozen on the rooftop. Earlier, I had gone to the Guardian Association to apologize for siding with Yuri, but the gazes from the Guardian Association fell upon me, full of accusation and anger. They turned to Tsubaki Manazuru, saying they could never cooperate with someone who committed a crime. I was foolish to believe the one I thought was an ally had betrayed me, and Marie's death was unforgivable proof. Tsubaki Manazuru tried to apologize, but her words couldn't save anything. They even said my bringing the vial to ask for forgiveness was a laughable joke. They didn't need her and didn't want to see her again. They turned away, saying they didn't have time for this. Even Tsubaki Manazuru turned away to follow the Guardian Association. Meanwhile, on the enemy side, the plan had begun. They were continuing their plan to transform people for the next mass catastrophe. A strange sound echoed throughout the sealed room, causing everyone to gradually transform into monsters. At that time, I was still being reprimanded by the temple members for cooperating with Yuri, causing the cooperation with the Guardian Association to collapse. I could only apologize. The nurse reminded me that she never trusted that cooperation, saying that destroying Tokyo might be the fastest way to salvation. The nurse, after hearing this, just sighed. She said she had to leave to continue researching a way to save this world. The journalist dragged Arrow along, insisting that he needed to recover important data and had his own plan. Shoko still stood there, muttering about the distorted ideals that only she believed in. Reviewing the data, the journalist discovered that the policewoman might have been killed because she found something extremely important. He swore to personally avenge her. Hearing this, Ero asked to accompany him, ready to act as his assistant. They were being followed by me. Very quickly, the journalist caught me peeking. Did the culprit come here to kill me? He guessed that I had seen his death and thought I would be his next victim, saying everything I did was only for Yuri and myself, and that I could not change my own destiny. I cannot deny it, but I also cannot say that I want to change fate. Yet I am being treated coldly. In the end, the reporter and Ero still left, warning me to stay away from them as far as possible if I didn't want to die. In the darkness, the enemy was also plotting. It seems their secret plan has been exposed. Inuki Aoba brought up killing me. He did not ask for his demands to be met, but the chairman refused, knowing that Inuki Aoba was only left with blind rage. Inuki Aoba angrily left, leaving the tattooed man standing and urging the chairman, saying I was a thorn in their side, and reminding him that I had once pushed Yuri, the Guardian Society, and the temple to almost cooperate with each other. I can gather everyone and potentially become the Red Queen in the future. Meanwhile, in his cell, Yuri was lost in thought about me, looking at a childhood photo of us together. The nurse sat alone in the laboratory, slowly touching the stones left by the deceased. Elsewhere, Ishin Kakihara sought out Tsubaki Manazuru, telling her that the reporter might encounter misfortune. He wanted to ask for Tsubaki Manazuru's help under the name of the Guardian Society. Tsubaki Manazuru nodded silently, saying she would help. The reporter was reviewing the information then. He saw Ero had fallen asleep and sighed, unsure if Tsubaki Manazuru was watching them. In his hand was a map with areas circled in red, and coincidentally, it led to the place where Shoko had ordered the destruction of Tokyo. While thinking, he realized I was still secretly following him. He came to the park to talk to me. The reporter laughed, saying he no longer cared about life or death, as he was the sole survivor of a family that had chosen suicide. He stared straight at me, asking why someone who was ready to kill his own father was clinging to life. He questioned me again about that 5-year-old case. I flatly refused, admitting that I could no longer remember everything clearly, but since that day, I have only lived in pain and had wished to die at that moment. However, there was still some reason for me to keep living, so I could not die yet. In my eyes at this moment, there was the glint of a person yearning for life, not one willing to give up. The glint the reporter had been searching for so long, yet he still did not forgive me. The reporter paused, then accompanied me to the place the police had investigated. There, they followed the remaining clues. The enemy had created all the artificial disturbances. Suddenly, all 3 were subdued by the enemy. Ero immediately took a fatal blow to the chest. The reporter realized that they were the ones who had killed the police officer. I roared and rushed forward, but the shadows of the dead clung to my feet, causing me to panic and act wildly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Grim Reaper used threads to tie me up. The reporter urged me to use my blood power, but I couldn't do anything in this state. It turned out the enemy had used strange music to bind my mind and imprison my heart. The reporter approached to encourage me, but was struck by a blow. Ero, though severely injured, tried hard to protect the reporter and was then stabbed fatally. She commanded him to survive, and then disappeared into thin air. In that moment, the reporter suddenly remembered everything. He heard voices like those of deceased loved ones, urging him to keep living. However, instead of saving his own life, he lunged to deliver a blow for me. He declared that his purpose in life was to take me down. He could not accept that his parents had rejected him. If he loved someone, he wanted to go with them. Therefore, he could not accept someone like me, who had refused to die with my father. But it seemed he was wrong. He declared me completely innocent. In an instant, he reviewed the materials and learned the truth that I had never killed my father from the case files. Then he collapsed. I rushed to him, signaling to Tsubaki Manazuru in the sky that this culprit was the one who killed the police officer. Tsubaki Manazuru chased after the miscreant. With his last breath, the reporter whispered his final words to me. He wanted me to survive, and one day he thought I would become a motivation for others to live. After saying this, his body dissolved into thin air, leaving me with a brilliant red stone. At the same time, in another space, Shoko sat with ducks. Knowing that another person was gone, ducks ordered them to try their best, as a plan concerning fate was approaching. The opposing organization was already planning an attack on a large concert hall. The Grim Reaper would be the main singer at that day's concert. Furthermore, this performance required the use of the superior dark matter, and at that show, they intended to end everything. The Grim Reaper would sing a requiem for the Red Queen. In the end, only Akira Kark was willing to accompany Tsubaki Manazuru to help my group through the reporter. I also learned everything. It was heartbreaking that the reporter had also passed away. He was also a good person. I was determined at all costs to stop the conspiracy of chaos and survive. Everyone came to the temple to discuss the cooperation plan. Shoko continued to mock the police officer's death to create division, but Tsubaki Manazuru remained calm, saying it was because she acted alone. Ducks looked at the stars on the ceiling, forming the Big Dipper constellation. When this constellation was complete, the second great catastrophe would occur, and their chance of survival would be almost zero. I calculated that they only needed to stop the ritual before it was completed to have a chance to save many people. According to the clues left by the female police officer, the final key was hidden in the Endless Concert Hall, a construction built by the Aval Scientific Organization. Shoko laughed, saying the reporter had finally done something useful. She even mocked that I must be very happy that the thorn in my side had disappeared. Even when I asked her to stop, she continued to taunt. Julia felt uncomfortable, and even Tsubaki Manazuru found this woman difficult to deal with. I resolved that I would end everything myself, that I would be the one to stand up against the cruel fate that had been set. Dude smirked like someone who had foreseen part of the future. Yuri's father stood by the window, calculating when the second great catastrophe was about to begin. Although this plan seemed quite perfect, he thought he should still be cautious. He considered Yuri already useless for larger plans. Someone in the group mentioned a person who hadn't acted yet. He called that person a masterpiece and warned not to compare them with Yuri. Inuki Aoba asked himself whether he should treat all the experimental subjects this way. He replied that he no longer remembered any failures, then let it slip that if Inuki Aoba was not useful enough, he would be eliminated. However, he refused to allow Inuki Aoba to kill me when requested, instead assigning him the duty to guard another location. The single order made Inuki Aoba furious, but he dared not disobey. When Inuki Aoba didn't understand why the chairman treated him like that, a sickly figure in the corner of the room said that if it were Inuki Aoba, he could ignore everything to focus on waiting for revenge, even the transport of the stone. Yuri's father affirmed his decision was absolute. Inuki Aoba went out and encountered Yuri. He and a subordinate blamed themselves for not killing Yuri then, and for continuing to deal with me. Haru Minakami believed it was all Yuri's fault for seducing the enemy side. Tsubaki Manazuru was cleaning her car in her spare time when the subordinate Haru Minakami drove by. She thought this man was very reckless. He handed her a letter notifying that the day for transporting the artificial stone would be today. This news immediately caused everyone to gather at the temple to debate whether it was a hoax or a challenge. If the opposing group planned to take everyone in the concert hall hostage, then, when my group arrived, they would turn everyone into monsters. This scenario would turn the second doomsday into an irreversible chaos in Tokyo. Shoko coldly calculated sacrificing everyone. I desperately came up with a plan, believing that as long as they disabled the piano before the musicians started playing, they could disrupt the effect of the sound circuit. The plan seemed simple, but contained many risks. I knew I had to act precisely. Alone in the rose garden before going up the stage, I thought about everything, wondering who would have to sacrifice next. Bloody images flashed back like a nightmare, this time with many people. Noticing this, Dux noted that I could infiltrate others' dreams, saying that I seemed too familiar with blood-stained hands and that I was seeking salvation more than anyone else. Dux observed that I had never truly defeated fate. But I woke up, this time without fear anymore. My fragile hope turned into a cold resolve that I could do it. On the night of the operation at the haunted house, Inuki Aoba was sickly, prompting Haru Minakami to remind him. Haru Minakami reported that I would arrive tonight. Inuki Aoba flinched when he learned that Haru Minakami had sent a letter to my team to give Inuki Aoba a chance to kill me. Haru Minakami trusted Inuki Aoba. My team immediately approached the location by any means necessary. When they appeared, the opposing team used shape-shifting magic to turn security personnel into monsters. The artist on stage began playing haunting, minor notes, driving the audience into a frenzy, while the background was a chaotic duel. I broke through the barrier and rushed towards the stage with the intention of eliminating the artist before he finished his performance. But Inuki Aoba appeared, blocking my way. The surprise attack plan failed in an instant, despair evident on my face as I saw that nothing was going according to plan. Inuki Aoba seemed amused by his opponent's confusion, adding fuel to the fire, but the performance had already reached its climax. The door chime of the Grim Reaper pushed everyone to the brink. My team's plan had failed. The Grim Reaper artist had turned everyone into monsters. In the chaos, Painful memories flooded back to me. I remembered the confrontations where I made Inuki Aoba pay. I taught Inuki Aoba a lesson, but then Inuki Aoba was betrayed by the Grim Reaper and was overwhelmed. The situation was quickly exploited to start a massacre, making the conspirators believe that the Crimson King would appear amidst the carnage. Suddenly, a deep power within me awakened. The sign of the Crimson King flashed like a cold spark. Seeing that Inuki Aoba had successfully awakened the Crimson King, the Grim Reaper believed that Inuki Aoba had completed his objective. He killed Inuki Aoba. Haru Minakami crazily rushed forward, wanting revenge for his friend, but was overwhelmed by the Grim Reaper. However, he didn't die because Akira Kark took the blow instead. The Grim Reaper praised, saying, "How beautiful to die for the one you love." Then I activated the Crimson King mode, entering the battle against the Grim Reaper. The philosophical battle took place in the void, and I managed to destroy the Grim Reaper's monster. Shoko showed satisfaction, believing the plan was going in the right direction. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Yuri's father hugged the small girl and sobbed because the plan had failed. He wouldn't be able to create another great catastrophe. And that girl, Chiyu, opened her mouth, calling him father. Julia was happy to have prevented the second great catastrophe, thinking the world would be peaceful from now on. Yuri's father summoned his two daughters, Yuri and Shu, to his side. He looked at them with cold eyes and announced that from now on, the real war would begin, that it was time for them to abandon everything and step into a new world. He had set aside Chu for this very day. The atmosphere in the room immediately became heavy as the subordinates whispered that they had to prioritize eliminating me now. These words fell like a cruel order, making Yuri freeze. The subordinates quickly explained everything to the girl. He took the opportunity to look at Yuri and badmouth me, claiming that I had killed two of their allies and hundreds of clones. He painted a picture of a traitor to reinforce his hatred. Yuri still believed in me, but the screen in the room lit up, showing me committing horrific acts. These images were like a blow to her fragile trust. At the church, Shoko boasted to Dux that the plan had succeeded. She had destroyed the magic stone that prevented the second great catastrophe. Although many people had died, Shoko boasted as if she deserved the great credit, simultaneously cursing the organization, making the atmosphere even more chaotic. Julia asserted that I was the Crimson King, but Shoko refuted that only the last survivor was qualified to be the Crimson King, and she believed the only qualified person here was herself. She turned to Dux seeking an alliance, but Dux only smiled faintly. At the hospital, Haru Minakami and Akira Kark lay unconscious with severe injuries. Fortunately, Julia appeared just in time to treat them and take them to the hospital. While Shoko mocked everyone and hurried to destroy the alchemy stones, an act she would later boast about as her sole achievement, they guessed that Haru Minakami might also be surprised that the very person who was hunting him had saved his life. While I always believed there was a way to save everyone, I didn't do everything for personal glory. I thought about how to save everyone. In my head, bloody images and people falling down still lingered. This thought left me restless. The doctor and Chiu arrived at a secret location. All this time, he had let Chiu handle everything without intervention. The little girl activated a device that made him seem pleased. She restored the doctor's laboratory and my coffin that day. They believed that through this device, even if the second collapse failed, he could still force the gate open. This calculation came with a huge risk. Tokyo would be destroyed, but he didn't care about anything else. He just needed to see my mother once. That was enough for him. He was willing to sacrifice the entire world for the person on the other side of the world. At the church, Shoko cursed me for stealing her chance to perform in front of Dux. She believed I didn't deserve to be the Crimson King. She would be the one to stop the catastrophe and seize that position. She wished I would soon disappear, and she hatched a wicked idea to kill everyone so she could become the last survivor. The Grim Reaper appeared from nowhere, suggesting Shoko's thoughts were muddled, then silently vanished the way he appeared. A candle in the church fell, igniting a void. Meanwhile, Yuri was being forced by her father to watch videos of me killing people and was being brainwashed by him. She wanted to turn away, but her father forced her to watch from beginning to end. He believed I was gradually being consumed by the Crimson King's power, inadvertently causing my own demise. I would soon lose control and destroy everything. He believed only Yuri could save me, stopping me from becoming the Crimson King. Everyone gathered at the church. Shoko was dead, leaving only a stone behind. Dux flew in without remorse for Shoko's passing and announced a new move from the enemy. They had a plan to bring Tokyo to a new world. This time, She would let everyone decide the next course of action. I became angry again, clearly remembering that the initial plan to destroy Tokyo was her idea. Yuri sat by the bed, anxiously recalling the words her father used to brainwash her. She was very worried about me. She came to the familiar house where I had been sitting since some time ago. As usual, she brought me a freshly brewed hot cup of cocoa. Although the two sides were opposed, the feelings between them would never change. I sat in the old house drinking the cocoa Yuri brought. Its taste brought back old memories and reassured Yuri that I was still the same person. She couldn't believe I could become the person the screen depicted. I reluctantly admitted that my actions were sometimes heavily tainted, but I believed that if I didn't act myself, I couldn't save those threatened by the mist and rituals. For the sake of my ideals, I accepted having blood on my hands. Yuri was shocked and dropped the cup of cocoa. Seeing that I had changed before I stood up and left, Yuri grabbed my hand, begging me to stop killing people. But I said that now I had to fight. That internal conflict continued until the organization had a new scheme, and I still refused to avoid the responsibility that Inanoi and Ishin Kakihara seemed to have entrusted to me. Yuri begged me, saying I was the only one she needed. She pleaded with me to forget about becoming the Crimson King and stay with her. She wanted us to run away to a place with just the two of us. I refused and walked away. Yuri had no choice. She transformed to stop me. Julia tied her up, claiming Yuri distracted me. I had changed since Yuri appeared, so she was a threat that had to be eliminated. Julia would kill Yuri to bring me back. I tried to intervene, but the tense situation suddenly stalled when Yuri killed Julia. This act stunned me. Yuri flew away in a hurry, her mind in turmoil from her extreme act. She said she knew nothing. She was just confused. At the same time, the doctor and Chiyu activated the system. The self-destruction signal began to sound. What they feared most had begun. The entire city fell into darkness and self-destruction storms. Although only 4 people were left standing, my team was still determined to save the world. Ducks appeared, bringing new information. The core of this destruction device was what had stolen my mother's life, and they had to destroy this device. After encouraging each other, they flew away together. Everywhere fell into chaos. The entire city seemed to be swallowed by darkness. The doctor rejoiced at his research success, believing this device had helped connect the two worlds. Like this, Tokyo would be destroyed. As my team flew through the sky, they were suddenly intercepted by the opposing faction. The Grim Reaper wanted to take my life to settle an old debt. In that moment of chaos, everyone decided to leave me alone. They let me face the Grim Reaper and fly to the organization's headquarters. The standing figure remained calm and continued to attack to undermine the morale of the opponent, claiming that my hands were stained with guilt, that I was a murderer. I stood amidst this barrage of words, deeply feeling all the accumulated wounds in my heart. I voluntarily accepted all the guilt, admitting that I would bear everything so that my comrades could be safe. I didn't need to be forgiven. The remaining 3 flew to the headquarters they were directed to, but it was just an ordinary house. The floor and hallway resembled memories of a family that once lived there. Dux confirmed that the professor and my mother had once researched in this place. Dux's detached way of speaking made everyone in the group find it hard to bear. They looked at each other suspiciously, then focused on their objective. Tsubaki Manazuru rushed forward to strike the opponent, proudly declaring her invincibility. The battle on the Grim Reaper stage escalated. I tried to resist, but was overcome by darkness and fainted. I collapsed unconscious with a cold metal rod in my grip. In my delirium, I saw myself lying in a large pool of blood. Dreams appeared like repeating scenes, the screams of the departed echoing. I realized that it was finally my turn to face fate. Dux's image appeared completely different from the usual. She was no longer just an observer, but had become a demon bringing dreams to me. Only now did I realize she was behind all the dreams and memories of the past. She had lured me with illusions. Dux revealed that everything they experienced seemed to be a repeatedly acted-out script. Every appearance and detail emerged like patterns. The only thing that could change the outcome was my will. I couldn't understand why it was always me who had to bear everything. Never forgiven in these performances. Around Tokyo, many monsters emerged from the dense fog at the center. The streets turned into a battlefield. My comrades went to eliminate the monsters, leaving Tsubaki Manazuru and Ishin Kakihara alone. Ishin Kakihara found it quite amusing to be alone with Tsubaki Manazuru, causing her face to flush with embarrassment. Ishin Kakihara admitted he wasn't good at grasping the atmosphere, But this time he cleverly flattered the petite girl, not wanting to live in regret. At the secluded place where the doctor was hiding, he tried to sweet-talk Chu with sweet words, but Chu saw through his true face. She knew he was manipulating emotions to use his children as tools for his ambition. She understood that even my mother had been drawn into this deception. The doctor was just a liar, and the only thing he cared about was himself. The doctor shouted in anger when questioned, threatened and forced, but those words only revealed his fear. Ju stood up straight and forced him to be silent. She said she was created from his and my mother's genes, so she knew all the secrets. She accused me that my mother never loved the doctor. Her only love was reserved for her real family. No matter how hard he tried to open the door, she wouldn't be waiting there for him. She only hoped to return to her family. Those words struck the doctor's mask heavily. The nurse appeared at the right moment, and her decisive action made the doctor panic and run away, a sight that began to shake all his plans. The nurse and Chu transformed, preparing for battle. Meanwhile, I, despite the pain and exhaustion, refused to give up the fight. I mustered my strength to return to the battlefield, throwing myself into the fight with the determination to survive and fight to the end. The departed had given me hope to survive at all costs. In an instant, I rushed towards the opponent on stage, shaking off the servant of destruction. The Grim Reaper believed I had abandoned my humanity. I quickly eliminated the Grim Reaper and his minions. The Guardians arrived to meet Tsubaki Manazuru at this time. They believed she was going against the title of Guardian and was no longer worthy of it. They pushed back a group of monsters, saying they were only doing their duty. Meanwhile, the nurse and Chiu were locked in a fierce confrontation. Their relationship was full of resentment and accusation. Chiu called the nurse a disgrace. The nurse resolutely denied this. Both struggled to stop the device, but Chiu couldn't restrain the machine. The sound of metal clanging like a warning bell. The doctor, almost crazily believing he was about to get what he wished for, was struck down by a tranquilizer dart. This violent act shattered his moment of madness. Dux appeared. The information from her made everyone's blood run cold. According to Dux, there was only one way left. I had to sacrifice myself to seal the source of the sin. Only my death could completely stop the machine. I was determined to sacrifice myself. But Yuri stood in front of the machine to object. She used her entire body to obstruct. She didn't want me to die. She only wanted to protect my life. Yuri realized she had changed. Therefore, she accepted to follow my mistakes. Both fell into a fierce internal and physical struggle. Finally, Yuri realized she couldn't keep me back forever. She let me do what was necessary, but requested to come with me. She didn't want to be left behind. She still had the strength to help. They held hands tightly, stepping towards the gradually opening rift. The rift was like a blade between the two worlds. Their footsteps marked the edge of the boundary. In the final second, I let go of Yuri's hand. I wanted her to live in my place. To me, nothing in this world was more important than Yuri. I needed to ensure that life would go on. I wanted Yuri to promise me that she would survive. Yuri could only agree. I flew through the rift and dissolved into the light. The sky turned blank. The light gradually returned. Yuri floated down to the ground, embracing the emptiness where I had just stood. The loss sank deep into her heart, like a wound that would never heal. Outside, the remaining groups gathered the scattered remains. They set about rebuilding a new world from the ashes. The work of mending and healing began. Small foundations were laid again, but it wasn't over yet. The opposing faction still had one survivor. That person was the one who had pushed the doctor off the tall building.